Hey there, Agile Adventurer. Just a quick question. What if, for the price of a fancy coffee or half a pizza, you could unlock over 700 hours of the best Agile content on the planet? That's audio, video, e-courses, books, presentations, all that you can think of. But you can also join live calls with world-class practitioners and hang out in a flame war-free and AI slop-clean Slack with the sharpest minds in the game. Oh, and yes, you get direct access to me, Vasco, your Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. No, this is not a drill. It's the Scrum Master Toolbox membership. And it's your unfair advantage in the Agile world. So if you want to know more, go check out scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. That's scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. And check out all the goodies we have for you. Do it now. But if you're not doing it now, let's listen to the podcast. Hello, everybody. It is Team Tuesday here on the podcast. And this week, joining us to talk about teams is Steve Martin. Hey, Steve, welcome back.
Hey, Vasco. All right.
So, Steve, teams are the focus of today's conversation. But before we dive into that, share with us, what was the book that most inspired you in your career as a Scrum Master?
Yeah, well, there's been several books that have kind of hit me at the right time throughout my Agile career. I can reel off a whole load that sort of were just right for the right time for me. Things like Scrum Mastery by Jeff Watts, 5 Dysfunctions, Start With Why, Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, Coaching Agile Teams by Lisa Adkins. The one that really stands out for me, the one that I think was at the big turning point is the Phoenix Project. It's a book by Gene Kim. And the reason it sticks out for me is because I was just moving into coaching at that time. And I was moving away from being a team Scrum Master and sort of looking a bit more beyond that. And the book itself isn't just about DevOps, right? It's really about culture. And so much of it resonated with me that it was so many light bulb moments was just going off all the time that's exactly the experience that I've had. And it just, because it follows a kind of a mock company and it's written like a novel, it can just flow so nicely and give you such a good insight into how organizations are structured and how teams are, so where they fit in the industry or in their organization. And so for me, there was a lot of really good learnings from that. But it was a great inspiration because I took that book and I was like, right, everybody has to read this, right?
Can you share one of those light bulb moments that you had while reading the book, something that stayed with you even until today?
Yeah, well, the biggest one for me really was about being a single point of failure. And I actually had it in one of my Scrum teams working with a software company. Was we'd have one guy that would just work all weekend to do a release. So you'd have the engineer and I think the project manager would be basically working with them. They'd just do a whole weekend and then they would just burn out. On a Monday morning, they'd all go back. They'd go back to take 3 days off because they were just burnt. And we needed them, right? We needed the lead engineer. And in the Phoenix Project, that's exactly what was happening with this guy. There was this one guy who's just completely, everything was in his head. He was the single point of failure. And so when it came to some real critical need, he wasn't there. And what they realized for the organizational in the book was that you need to be able to share the knowledge and share the understanding and build and de-risk this kind of thing happening, because you can't have one person with all the knowledge in an organization. It's so high risk. So for me, that was the biggest learning curve. But there's a lot of lot of good lightning bulb moments that go off.
Absolutely. And of course, when we think about organizations, how they are structured, one of the key components of any organization is the team. In fact, I usually say that the unit of productivity in software development is no longer the individual, it's the team. And that's why teams are so important and how they can be so impactful if they start to veer towards self-destructive patterns. And that's what we want to hear today. A story about a team, Steve, that maybe it all looked okay in the surface, or maybe it didn't. But there were these kind of little behaviors and attitudes and patterns that started emerging and eventually became a problem for that team. So share that with us. Tell us a little bit about the context so that we know what kind of team we're talking about. And then walk us through how those behaviors and patterns kind of started growing and became a problem for the team.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few different teams that I couldn't pick out really, but one that really stands out based on what you're mentioning there is the team I worked. It was an infrastructure team, a platform team, working in telecoms a few years ago, and they were spread out all over Europe, right? So you had product owner based down in Italy. You had um, hardware engineers based in Budapest. You had software engineers based over in Bucharest. You had designers based in the UK. I mean, it was, and this was before lockdown, before COVID, a few years before that. So the idea of trying to coordinate this kind of team was already a challenge, right? Now they were a completely new agile team. They'd been working together for a little bit, but they hadn't actually. I started with them and spent 4 days with them doing training and workshops and things to get them started up. The average age of the team was it was over 40. So you can imagine this kind of bright spark coming in with all this great, funky ideas of agile, trying to explain, how to basically work differently for them. And they are quite long in the tooth. They've been in engineering for many, many years. So there was already a sense of resistance. Now, I mean, something I've learned over years is never to put the blame of resistance on the individual. Right? There's always a reason for their resistance that is beyond. It's a much broader, much deeper challenge that we need to be very, very cognizant of. But at the time, I just felt that they were really against what I was trying to teach them or
That was
help them.
probably true, but maybe the context of why they were against it was not completely transparent.
Yeah, absolutely. And the issues that started to come up in the beginning, I think all teams when you have that immediate burst of energy when they first come together, there's some real excitement, there's a real buzz in the team when you start off, but very, very quickly the day to day gets, the actual working patterns start to appear. The they start getting pressure from elsewhere because they're not on that. They haven't built the momentum because they're trying to acquire a different way of working. So what tends to happen is that you start off all right, and then after a month or so, maybe a couple of months, you start to sense that there's something not quite right, and people stop turning up for the daily stand up, cameras go off, people are not as engaged in the retrospectives, and things start to, the actual information doesn't become apparent. Like you're not being told. You're almost like the outsider, right? And as a coach, it's really difficult to work with that. You're there to help them. So I'm starting to see these patterns appearing of, the Scrum Master was also doing engineering in the team as well. Um, the what became apparent, and it wasn't something that was given directly to me. I basically was starting to use my senses. Was that this wasn't the only project that they were working on. There was other. They had about 3 or 4 other
When did that
things
become
going on.
obvious?
It took a while. It took a good couple of months to
How did
notice
it
that.
become obvious that they were maybe working on multiple projects at the same time?
Basically, because when they started to stand off from things, that they weren't as engaged, it became apparent that they weren't focused, and it was reflective in the data as well. So I was starting to see that actually the data wasn't really
What did you do then? Did you
staying consistent.
confront them?
Yes, so I started working with the Scrum Master because I wanted to really empower him to to build that relationship with the team and start to offer that. And he was under a lot of pressure because he also had commitments as an engineer, right? So there was a conflict of interest. Plus, he was an engineer, so he was part of the team, part of the engineering team. Um, so for me, it was actually a real learning curve in trying to coordinate as well as coach this group. Um, and I didn't feel I had the empowerment or the authority or the experience to really challenge them.
So how did
Not,
you solve it, or did you solve it?
to be honest, I didn't. I didn't solve it, and it was that's another failure really for me. Is that the team themselves would just it was just something that I couldn't
So
really.
one of the things that I hear in this story, so okay, the obvious thing is that there's multiple levels of interaction, right? Like first you're a coach, then there's the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master isn't just the Scrum Master, they are also an engineer. So that's already two levels of interaction with just one person. And then the team is working in multiple projects, which probably means that the Scrum Master needed to keep a lot of other people happy. There's yet another level of interaction. Maybe you did have access to that. Maybe you didn't have access to that. I don't know. But what is interesting for me in this story is that one of the core assumptions we have in Agile is that a team is working on one set of things, whether it is a backlog or a queue if you're using Kanban, or a very specific time frame in a sprint or an iteration. And what I hear from you is that none of that was in place. They were not working on one thing, they were working on multiple things. There was not one specific timeline because, of course, when you have multiple stakeholders, pardon me, there's multiple timelines, and that is, in my mind, like setting up the team for failure. And of course, nobody wants to fail. So when people feel that they are fail, what do they get? They get scared. They get resistant. They get edgy, right? Because when you're afraid of failing, you're always feeling that you're being judged by others around you. So it's not a very conducive environment for even the team to do whatever they were already assigned to do, let alone do that and improve their ways of working.
Yeah, 100%. And it also came down to leadership buy-in as well. So it was very, very apparent that they didn't have the sponsorship and engagement from their leaders. So there was high demands of their time, high demands of the work that they were doing, where the their stakeholders were just not invested into it. So they were battling and obviously appeasing their stakeholders to try and they want to do a good job, right? That's no team that I've ever worked with has ever wanted to be disruptive or be
Do a bad job, right?
bring some do a bad job. Nobody wants to do. Norman Kurth's famous quote, right? Um, that everybody wants to do good, but we are all products of our environment. We're products of our surroundings and the people that we're interacting, engaging with, and leadership that we're engaging with. So for me, as a team, I mean, they weren't really a team. Let's call it out what it is. They weren't a team. They were a group of individuals working on multiple different projects and different projects and products.
And it also reminds us that we can't always solve all the problems, but it's important to have the language and the mental models to be able to identify them, to know what we are facing. So thank you for sharing that story with us, Steve.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, it's all of these things are great learning. You know, they're good experience. It took me a while.
All right, I hope you liked this episode. But before you hit next episode, here's the deal. This podcast is powered by people like you, the members who wanted more than just inspiration. They wanted real tools and real connection to people who are practicing Agile every day. We're talking access to over 700 hours of Agile Gold, CTO level strategy talks, summit keynotes, live workshops, e-courses, deep dive interviews, books, and if you're into no estimates, we got the pioneers of no estimates in those deep dive interviews as well. Agile business intelligence, creating product visions, coaching your product owner courses, you name it. You'll get invites to monthly live Q&As with Agile pioneers and practitioners, plus a private Slack community, which is free of all of that AI slop you see everywhere, and of course, without the flame wars. It's a community of practitioners that want to learn and thrive together. It's the best place to connect with community and learn together. So if this podcast has helped you before, imagine what you will get from this podcast membership. So head on over to scrummastertoolbox.org/membership and join the community that's shaping the future of Agile. And we have so much for you. So check out all the details at scrummastertoolbox.org/membership, because listening is great, it's important, but doing it together, that's next level. I'll see you in the community Slack. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.